Chuckadelphia. This is Chuck coming to you from the command center, and today I have a very special guest. Not many people know where they meet their friends for the first time. Not many people remember exactly when they met their friends for the first time. My next guest is someone that I met exactly on October 23rd, 2005. It was a Sunday, and I can remember that because it was a very fascinating game by the Philadelphia Eagles. And I saw this person in a bar, and she was there. She was also a fellow football fan. I want to introduce you to a very special friend of mine, Shelley. Okay, now Shelley, please tell us where you are coming from today.
Good morning. I am coming from Duluth, Minnesota. As I see you have behind you, have our lovely lift bridge behind you.
Oh my goodness. I thought I was on Mars.
You recorded yourself.
Yeah. So I believe Duluth is pretty close to the border with Canada, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I haven't been there to Canada for a while, but it is a few hours drive.
Okay. A lot of people say that, people in Canada like to go to Minnesota where it's warm in the summer, in the winter.
Yeah, right?
Okay. So out of curiosity, do you get a lot of snow each year?
Most of the time we do, although not always. But this last year we had a big storm and I was out of town and came home and we were snowed in for days and days and days.
Okay.
And I had to traipse through the snow. It was about up to my waist.
Wow. How about that? Up to your waist. Now, out of curiosity, what is the standard cold temperature in the winter months?
It can get really cold, like negative 20 degrees. Most of the time it stays in the, I would say, I don't know, around 10 degrees.
Yeah, so that's about Fahrenheit?
And that's Fahrenheit, and that's really cold.
So Celsius says negative 2 million degrees Celsius, right? Okay, very cool. So you and I met in Quito, as I said earlier, and it was a great experience having the opportunity to get to know you. You and I were reminiscing earlier. You threw my going away party, the second part of my going away party. It started off at a friend's house, and then it ended up at your house. And I'll forever be grateful, and for everything you did at that time. So, in addition to Ecuador, where are some other places that you have lived?
I've not lived in other countries. I've lived in other states here in the U.S. And so prior to moving to Ecuador, I lived in Texas for a little while. And before that, I lived in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Okay.
I've lived in Orlando, Florida. I've lived in Seattle, Washington. I think that I was in Fargo, North Dakota for a while.
Okay.
Yeah, so some different places.
And of all the places you have lived, what has been your favorite?
Oh, Ecuador, definitely.
Ecuador? And what did you like so much about Ecuador?
I just love the culture and the slower pace of life and, being which is what I'm seeing now, like with the coronavirus stuff, is that people are outside a lot more. And so it feels more community. So I just like that people are outside, and I enjoyed being able to just walk to the nearest market and get the food that I needed to buy, and everything within walking distance, and it was just wonderful. And I hope to get back there actually.
Okay. Now, the next time you get a chance to travel to Ecuador, what do you think is the first thing you would like to do when you get there?
The first thing that I would like to do when I get there is probably to go to Cuenca, actually, because I haven't visited Cuenca for many, many years. I think the last time I was there was in 1996.
1996. That was when Cuenca was a part of the Inca civilization, right? It was, just so long ago. Yeah.
So it was. So I want to get back to visit Cuenca. I have some friends there, and we're actually looking about possibly moving there. And probably we're looking at like 10 years. So we want to kind of make a plan.
Okay. And one last question about Ecuador. What was your favorite food there?
Oh, I love eating chochos. I love temesca. I love yapingachos. When I go to visit, I have like a list of foods that I need to go and eat.
Oh, there you go. Very cool. Yeah, many times, hey, when you visit a place, many times the most important thing is to visit the types of food that you liked from that place,
Mhm.
more than anything else. All right, very cool.
Yeah.
So tell me, Shelley, what are you doing these days?
So I just started actually this week a couple new jobs. So
Yeah. So what were you doing before, and what are you doing now?
so before for the last few years I've been working as a therapist, a psychotherapist.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. So I've
Mm-hmm.
been working in a clinic that specializes in sexual health.
Okay.
And so that's where I've been working. And then with the coronavirus stuff going on, everybody moved to working from home, and I was laid off.
Okay.
I was laid off. Actually, yesterday it was 1 month.
Oh, wow. That's
Yeah.
interesting. Now, for the ESL learners or instructors that are watching this, laid off is slightly different than being fired, right? Could you explain the difference between being fired and being laid off?
Yeah. So generally, being fired is that an employee does something, whether it's something like stealing, or whether it's disobeying specific orders from their bosses or whatnot, or they show up too often late to work, whatever it is, like there's something that the employee did
Hmm.
wrong,
Right.
and probably more often than once.
Right.
With being laid off, this wasn't a matter of me doing anything that was a problem. It was
Hmm.
about that we do a lot of group stuff. And
Yeah.
so groups couldn't meet. And so they needed to make some decisions
Yeah.
around
Hmm.
letting people go for a while. And,
Hmm.
and the idea is that it's temporary.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they laid me off for that reason.
Mhm.
And I was only
Good.
a part-time employee.
Okay. Well, that's good. That's good. One time I was laid off for being too cool. They just
I
they
could see
could
that.
they couldn't accept my coolness around the office, so I had
I
to I
could
had to
see
go.
that.
Yeah. But you've moved on to a better position. You're happy where you are now, and you're doing
Yeah,
the same thing, right? Yep.
yeah. So I just started, so I guess we'll see as far as how it goes. But yeah, so we are doing it's chemical dependency treatment. So
Hmm.
working with people that have drug and alcohol addictions.
Hmm.
And so we do groups and individual sessions and stuff as well.
Hmm.
So it is a lot of the similar stuff, just in a different environment. Not so much focused on the sexual aspect of things, more on
Hmm.
chemical dependency addiction.
I mean, still very important work that you're doing. Now, out of curiosity, you know, what would you suggest for anybody watching this who might think they have a problem or might know someone that they think has a problem? How would you suggest they handle that?
Well, so if they specifically have a problem, then it's a matter of, seeking out support. There's lots of different ways to do that. There's professional help, whether that's inpatient and actually going to someplace where, there's like a 30-day program, let's say,
Hmm.
to bring a person out of their environment if it's not healthy. But otherwise, there's outpatient treatment. Therapists are good resources,
Hmm.
treatment centers. So yeah, so talking with people. The other thing that not everyone goes to treatment. Some people go to a 12-step program, whether it's AA, which is Alcoholics Anonymous,
Hmm.
or NA, Narcotics Anonymous.
Hmm.
So there's different possibilities, but
Hmm.
the reality is that it's a disease, and it's something that, just like if we have cancer, right? We go and we get treated for it. Like we talk with people about it.
Yeah.
And the idea around it, the stigma part is
Hmm.
changing, although slowly.
Yeah.
But talking with other people. So
Hmm. Yeah.
I know when I quit drinking a while back, um, I started talking with other people about just my decision to quit drinking.
Hmm.
And then it was interesting because other people were like, yeah, I've been thinking about that too. And since that point in time, other friends of mine have quit, and
Hmm.
just in general. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's interesting when we start opening up and talking about things that sometimes
Hmm.
we don't necessarily feel comfortable talking about.
What are some signs that someone might be able to detect determine if they have a problem, or as I said earlier, if someone they know has a problem?
Yeah, so when it comes to someone else, we can't really do anything about anyone else's stuff.
Hmm.
We can be supportive and have a family member or a friend who might have a problem with alcohol or with drugs. I always recommend Al-Anon,
Hmm.
or I recommend what's called Nar-Anon. Al-Anon tends to be a little bit easier to access.
Hmm.
That you can Google them and they're available in
Hmm.
lots of different places in countries as well. When it comes to specific signs, so does someone need more in order to feel what they felt previously? So do I need to
Hmm.
keep increasing my amount of alcohol consumption, for example, in order to feel the buzz or whatnot? Have people expressed concern around my drinking?
Yeah.
Right? Have people expressed concern about how much I'm using? Has it gotten in the way of relationships and caused problems
Hmm.
in relationships?
Hmm.
Is it something that if I'm drinking heavily and then the next day I need to wake up and start drinking again to kind of
Hmm.
whatever to take care of the hangover, for example, or that it just needs to keep going. That's another sign. So when it comes to signs or symptoms, if I notice that I'm drinking more or I need more alcohol or drugs in order to give me that high that I had before, that's one thing to look for. If I have to, wake up the next morning, or maybe it's that I'm just not sleeping at all and just continually drinking or using, those would be signs. If other people have expressed concern around my use,
Hmm.
and it's caused problems within relationships, caused problems within work, if there's legal problems,
Yeah.
if I'm driving while intoxicated, whether that be from
Hmm.
drugs or alcohol, if it gets in the way of things that I would otherwise be doing,
Yeah.
those are all signs that would let someone know that there might be a problem.
I imagine a really big challenge is from I mean, it's one thing. I mean, they're both amazingly challenging. Like to come up to that self-admittance, to have that strength to accept that there is a problem. But another issue, as you were saying, like if you're a friend of someone
Mhm.
and you see that they are destroying themselves, like to have the courage to risk that friendship and confront them about that,
Mhm.
that must be really hard. Also, what about the idea of an intervention? What is an intervention, and is it something that you would suggest someone organizing if they know someone that needs help?
So just in general, yeah, talking to someone, whether it's a family member or a friend, and coming from a really loving place, because usually when we talk about addiction, there's a lot of shame involved.
Yeah.
So really coming from a loving place and coming from, a place of concern. Like I'm
Hmm.
bringing this up because I really care about you and I love you and I want you to be okay. And I've noticed da 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 da.
Hmm.
And so, as far as interventions, I don't have much experience with interventions.
Hmm.
One of the things that I do know is that um, you know, when people are forced into treatment, that looks a lot different than when they decide they want to go into treatment on their own or become sober for themselves.
Hmm.
Um, so there's that aspect. At the same time, it is sometimes that's part of a person's path is that they kind of get pushed into stuff and then they eventually kind of see why that's important, even though maybe
Hmm.
they weren't on board initially. So, that's not something that I've had any experience with, in all honesty.
Hmm.
So I
Okay.
really recommend that people reach out for support through like Al-Anon and on if they have
Okay.
friends that they know that they're concerned about, because that can give them a lot more information.
Okay. All right.
Mhm.
Very interesting. Now, I have one last question for you, Shelley. Right now, with the COVID-19 experience, many people are, locked down at home. Many people are, frightened, scared, frustrated. So it seems like this is a time when many people may end up resorting to substance abuse or alcohol abuse. And so, uh, what what advice would you give for someone that's teetering on that edge to help them avoid falling over and crashing with alcohol? What do you think?
Yeah. Well, I think that's a really great question. And yes, people are struggling right now because we don't have things that we don't have those normal routines that we have created either for us because we go to a job, or that we have, that we've kind of created. And so that's the number one thing, is finding things to keep us engaged in life.
Hmm.
So, I know a lot of people are, binge watching shows on Netflix and stuff. And, that's fine to watch some things, but also to make sure to get outside, to follow through on a morning routine, both a morning routine and a bedtime routine. Not staying up until all hours because there's, nothing else kind of to do, but really just still setting the alarm, getting up, getting changed into clothes and not wearing pajamas all day,
Yeah.
but just giving,
Hmm.
like, taking on maybe like trying to learn new things, whether it's learning a language,
Hmm. Yeah.
which is great and helps so much,
Hmm.
learning a musical instrument, exploring new places outside,
Hmm.
taking walks into different places,
Hmm.
um, connecting with people, but really just figuring out like other things to kind of do, catching up on books or whatnot. So there's that aspect of things. Specifically when it comes to, connecting to other resources or other people that might be struggling, now is a great time to check into, whether it's like Zoom meetings, or there's telephone meetings for any of the 12-step programs for like AA and NA or Al-Anon. Those exist right now, and people, it can be really hard to, again, like you were mentioning earlier, to say like, yeah, I have a problem. So it's really a nice and kind of anonymous, more so anonymous way
Hmm.
of, hearing what's kind of out there for support,
Hmm.
because I can call up and I can say, yeah, my first name is Shelley, and that's all the information I'm giving. And so it's
Yeah.
really anonymous in that way.
Hmm.
But that's how people can also become engaged in some other, support systems. And really, I mean, that can be really helpful.
Okay. Wow. That's sage advice, Shelley. It's great to hear hear what you're saying from so many perspectives. The English language learners, the native speakers, wherever they are, anybody around the world could take what you just said and really apply it to their lives if they're in this type of situation or know someone that's in this situation. So
Mhm.
I want to thank you very much for your time. Shelley, it's always great to see you, always great to talk to you, and it's great to finally see you after so long instead of just
I know.
so thank you for, I mean, like this modern technology is wonderful, right? It's very
Mhm.
helpful for doing things like that. So I want to thank you again, and I truly wish you nothing but the best. Any final
Thank
words?
you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Chuck. No, this has been great, and it's so nice to see you. And this is great that you're doing this because, again, ways that people can keep engaged.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. Thank you very much. So, Shelley, thanks again. And for those of you watching, the masses at home, thank you for signing on and checking out Chuckadelphia. Remember, you do not need a classroom to learn. The world is your classroom. I want to wish you nothing but perfect health and happiness with your family during these trying times. So, once again, this is Chuck coming to you from Chuckadelphia. And as always, ciao, ciao. Say bye, Shelley.
Ciao. Bye.